In this video, I'm going to be talking about some of the issues that we are facing currently, all of us as a collective, and that we are all participating in to some degree whenever we are not aware of it. And the fact that we are the ones perpetuating some of these maladaptations and harmful behaviors and traumas, and we're traumatizing each other, especially obviously our loved ones, because those are the people we are close to, our families, our loved ones, and we're causing some frictions, and then we are then being separated, because whenever there's antagonizing force, you want to separate from that person. Whenever we're in relationships that are loving and compassionate, then that magnetizes us towards that person and those people. And that is why we need to understand what's really affecting us. And I'm going to be talking about two different books. One is about white slavery and one is about black slavery. If we talk about white slavery, a lot of black people tend to get themselves upset. And if we talk about black slavery, a lot of white people start feeling guilty. And so we're being gagged from talking about certain issues because people are not understanding why are they feeling what they're feeling, whose shame is it, or whose rage is it, or who should we be angry at. And so we're just so confused and taking on guilt for things that we didn't do, or some people are feeling aggrieved for experiences they hadn't even been through themselves. So that's why I always want to make videos that are that gives a sound basis for whatever maladies that we are facing and whatever pain that we're feeling. And some things in history, you might not know how these historical facts are causing you the issues that you currently have. And these books are going to shed some light on that, because we are all victims now of what they're calling indentured slavery and mental slavery. We have been brainwashed into accepting a system that polarizes and traps us in the lowest vibratory frequency. In this frequency, we become fearful, anxious, angry, depressed, and hateful, envious, greedy, jealous, violent, destructively aggressive, deceitful, unethical, morally bankrupt, superficial, and the list goes on. They brainwashed us into thinking we are enemies of each other, or that some are better than some and therefore have the right to abuse those whom they have designated their inferior. I will be reading from two books today. One is about white slavery and the other is about black slavery. These two books will shed some light on our current slavery model. It is estimated that up to 99% of our population is enslaved. It is my belief, however, that 100% of us is enslaved, because the 1% is enslaved by their perversion, delusion, and greed. Some are enslaved mentally while believing themselves free. I think these are the ones they call the sheepdogs. Some are enslaved by financial bondage. Some are enslaved due to corrupt policies. Some are enslaved physically, being bred and trafficked by family members, and other times abducted by strangers. Some are tricked by the promise of a better life, only to find themselves struggling constantly to make ends meet due to a system designed to create perpetual poverty. Some are enslaved by perverse ideals that they are superior, and the constant quest to maintain their ego-induced delusion of grandeur by extorting, exploiting, traumatizing, washing, co-opting, and brutalizing to stay on top. Before I get into this video, I just want to say thank you to all the subscribers, and to anyone who's new, welcome. Please subscribe and let me know where you're messaging from. I was so excited Or someone said, I'm from New Orleans, and I'm like, oh my God, land of magic. So now I'm really excited. I'm really excited to know where you're watching from. I feel like I'm connected to the place whenever someone is like messaging. If you're messaging from somewhere, it's really awesome. I love that. So these topics are heavy, but we're all in it together. We must remember our oneness. And also we have to overcome the guilt of our privilege. Okay, we just have to understand our privilege. And we have to overcome this guilt and the sorrow that we feel, because a lot of us, I was so sorrowful at the fact that I'm able to have certain things and everyone else doesn't have it. That was very difficult for me, and has been one of the most difficult part of my journey, is understanding that I can't stay depressed just because everyone doesn't have everything that I have, and that I must overcome my depression because that's where my power lies. If we're depressed, we are not powerful. If we're depressed, we're in a very low vibration, and we don't have the actual power to fight for the people, for them to have what we have, and so I've been able to train go through the training, go through these difficult things, and become empowered, so that now I'm a therapist and I can actually help people through their trauma. So if we don't overcome our depression and the sorrow that we feel, it doesn't mean we're not empathic, by the way. We're very much empathic about the trauma. We're very empathic about what people don't have. But what I'm trying to say is that we can't be depressed about it. Otherwise we lose our power and our ability to do the things that will help us to make the changes that we need to make. We are not responsible for something done by someone of our race or of our gender. The only things we're responsible for is to educate ourselves so that we cannot be used as pawns in the game of perpetual trauma. Although you'll be held accountable by law, you are not morally responsible for mistakes made in ignorance. Okay, and that's another thing where people don't want to know the mistakes that they made, because that makes them feel bad, and that makes them just reject certain information because they feel guilty, because they've done some things that weren't perfect or weren't the best, and when they realize that they're in the wrong, it really overwhelms them, and so they don't want to know that they're in the wrong. But if we don't know that we have harmed, we can't change. Okay, or that if we don't know we're harming, we can't change. All right, we will harm less when we are aware of the harm we do to ourselves and our loved ones. Working on ourselves is the real work. The world changes when each of us change ourselves. And I just want to say well done to everyone for being courageous enough to watch these type of content and to really ponder about what is our role in this greater scheme of darkness and perversion. So this book here, it's called How to Manage Your Slave. The character Marcus Sidonius Flux is a fictional character. However, the things in this book is actually written by a scholar based on very in-depth historical studies into the slavery practice of the Romans. I believe that there is a science of how to be a master, which proves that running a household and controlling slave is the same as being a leader in wider society. Whether leaders and masters are not also born is impossible to answer with any certainty. Some Greeks have argued that all men differ from each other according to their inner nature. Those who do manual physical work are slavish by nature, and it is better for them to come under the control of people such as myself, who are in possession of natures of a higher sort. For a man who is capable of belonging to another person is by nature a slave, and that is why the argument goes, Such a man belongs to someone else. Nature, they say, clearly also intend to make the bodies and soul of free men different to those of slaves. Slaves have bodies that are strong and well suited to the kind of physical service they have to do. Their souls are less capable of reasoning. The bodies of free men, by contrast, are upright and not so much use for that kind of manual work. But their souls are intelligent. They are suited for the purpose of partaking in life of the community, whether it be political or military. Of course, nature sometimes makes mistakes, and the opposites happen. Slaves are given the bodies of free men only the souls, not the body of free men. But on the whole, the Greeks said, nature does not make mistakes. She makes sure that each is allotted a nature suitable to his faith in life. So this person was conflicted between the idea that they just basically make things up. If you look big and you look strong, your nature made you to be a slave. They clearly nature made you to be physical and do manual labor. And those people who are a bit slight of body, of course, we are more intelligent, and therefore we should rule over you. Now, this is what propaganda is. And by the way, this is about white on white slavery in Rome, okay? So they didn't care about color. Colorism came in much later in our history. But most Romans disagree with this. They believe that controlling another human being is contrary to nature. So many of us Romans who continue to rule a great empire are now descended from slaves, that it would be ridiculous to believe that slaves are inherently useless. Roman thinkers argue that it is only social convention that leads one man to own another as a slave. They say that there is no natural difference between the two. It is a simple injustice, one that is based on the use of force. They also rightly pointed out that many slaves have acted in brave and noble ways during times of great crisis, which shows that they are not all slavish by nature. And if slavery is not natural, then neither is being a master. It must be learned. So you see that they knew, of course, the people who are in power knows that slavery was not natural. And so what they had to do was convince people to become masters. So just as they brainwash people into becoming slave and believing that they're supposed to be slave by nature, and then what they do is they stop people from being educated, and they just brainwash the people into believing that, well, you're born, after you've been kidnapped and subdued and sold, their offspring would be born slaves, and so they'll believe that they are lesser people because that's all they've been told. They have no education, they have nothing, no other knowledge, so how would they know? Then they also have to train people to become masters. They have to train people into superior notions, right? And this is why there are people very comfortable believing that they have the right to rule over others. So they have been brainwashed into believing that they are natural and just rulers, and that God gave them the right to rule, because that's what they've been brainwashed into believing, right? Now I'm going to be reading the next book is The Making of a Slave by Willie Lynch. Greetings, gentlemen. I greet you here on the banks of the James River in the year of our Lord 1712. First, I shall thank you, the gentlemen of the colony of Virginia, for bringing me here. I am here to help you solve some of your problems with slaves. Your invitation reached me on my modest plantation in the West Indies, where I have experimented with some of the newest and still the oldest methods of control of slaves. Ancient Rome would envy us if my program is implemented. As our boat sails south on the James River, named for our illustrious king, whose version of the Bible we cherish, I saw enough to know that our problem is not unique. While Rome used cords and wood as crosses for the standing human bodies along its highway in great numbers, you are here using the tree and the rope on occasions. I caught a whiff of a dead slave hanging from a tree a couple miles back. You are not only losing valuable stock by hanging, you are having uprisings. Slaves are running away. Your crops are sometimes left in the field too long for maximum profit. You suffer occasional fires. Your animals are killed. Gentlemen, you know what your problems are. I do not need to elaborate. I am not here to enumerate your problems. I am here to introduce you to a method of solving them. In my bag here, I have a foolproof method of controlling your black slaves. I guarantee every one of you that if installed correctly, it will control the slaves for at least 300 years. My method is simple. Any member of your family or overseer can use it. I have outlined a number of differences among the slaves, and I take these differences and I make them bigger. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control purposes. These methods have worked on my modest plantation in the West Indies, and it will work throughout the South. Take this simple little list of differences and think about them. On top of my list is age, but it's there only because it starts with an A. I want to stop here because I don't want anyone to become, like tunnel vision. This is not just about black slavery anymore. Okay, when he did this, it was about black slavery. This manual and all of these different slavers techniques have been upgraded. It's still the same techniques being used, where we are pitched against each other according to color, according to our gender, according to race. If you go according to class, according to everything, this is now the new method of mental slavery. Okay. And I've listed a bunch of other methods that are used to enslave us. So don't just be so tunnel vision about black slavery. This is just, these methods are used across the board for a number of different things. Okay. The second is color or shade. There is intelligence, size, sex, size of plantation, status on plantation, attitudes of owners, whether the slaves in the valley, on the hill, east, west, north, south, have fine hair, coarse hair, or is tall or short. These are still discriminatory practices being used. Like people who live on the upper East Coast, or people live in Manhattan, or this person lives downtown, or this person lives uptown, or this person lives in a mansion, or this person lives in a bungalow, this person lives in a particular town, do you see what I mean? All these things are still going on in our psyche, differentiating us and making us think that we're better or worse than each other. It's going on still. We are perpetuating it, believing that other people are better than us based on where they live, or that we are better based on where we live, or worse based on where we live, or somebody's worse based on where they live, or somebody's not great because if somebody's been in trouble, if somebody's been in prison, or somebody's trash because they have tattoos, or there's all these different things that we're using to discriminate, and we're causing friction and fighting and distractions, and people are over-identified with their genders. Look at what we're going through now with this gender identity and being called now a black birthing mother instead of a woman, and we're supposed to like it or lump it. We can't say, wait a second, what's going on here? Where are these splitting coming from? There's another one. People are talking about the chosen ones, as though some people are better than others, and there's all these divisive things going on. Some people are ignorant of it, and some people mean it. Some people are intentionally trying to cause divisions, like in politics we got left wing and right wing, and some people are just repeating things unknowingly, not realizing that we're causing dissension. And you will see so much of this on YouTube, you know, male versus female, and all these things is still being perpetuated. But before that, oh, I want to actually talk about this thing about the 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 old against the young, pitching the old against the young and the young against the old. When we have no respect for our elders, when we, first of all, we discriminate against our elders and we have no respect for the elders, right? What happens, and when people get to a certain age, they're discriminated against, they're disrespected, they lose jobs and all this kind of stuff. People are said to be ugly when they're aging, you know, they're not becoming of use anymore. Those things cause low self-esteem in those people. Those people don't want to be old. They're trying to be young and they're trying to be trendy. They go through midlife crisis and they're having a whole bunch of stuff. Then the young people lose respect for them because they're not holding that sage. The position of the sage is no longer there. Wisdom is not appreciated. Women, when they become old, they are discriminated against. Film industry don't want you because you're not sexy anymore, because that's all that's good women are good for. Wise women, no good, because men think in the men's mind that they were supposed to be ruling women. So if a woman becomes smart, that's not attractive to a lot of men. So there's a lot of confusion. So women are trying to dumb themselves down. Women are then having plastic surgeries. They're competing against young girls. Instead of nurturing and loving the young women, they now see them as competition and enemies. You see how the society become destabilized when you destabilize the mind of the people. As we're getting older, we are meant to be the sages. We're meant to be the foundation of, you know, to help to raise these young ones, that we are educating them. We are supposed to be the ones educating the young as we're becoming old, but we're busy competing, you know, and leaving our families because we thinking we're missing out, and we want to try out things and all, you know. So I hope it's taken me a year to make this video, you know, because I had to try to make myself oh God, I had to try to make myself contain. I had to try and contain myself, because there's so much in this. There is so much destruction in this book that has been taught to us. There's so much destruction. There's so much that I can't pick into all of it. There's some things I've skimmed over that I'll have to go into, even on just one page. There's so much. This little tiny book of destruction. You know, when we're getting older, we have to be the ones who are holding our young. Women are not supposed to try to outshine and be jealous of the young ones that are coming up. And these men are not supposed to be predatory over these young girls and these young boys. But because we are so perverted in our minds, and we think we should have it all, and we should try everything, and there's this, you know, all this mentality that we should have it all, that made us greedy. You know, it's greed and addiction and all these different things in us. So we are unstable. And if the head is unstable, then of course these young ones, who are they looking to? What are they looking to? They're looking to these people in movies and people in the music industry, not knowing that these people in the music industry has been groomed and are being used to corrupt. That the people in the film industry have been groomed and are being used to corrupt. And I'm not saying this just off the top of my head. I'm saying this because they have spoken out. Many people have spoken out about this, and the information is there, you know. Many people have spoken out, and I've got a very good documentary that I'm going to share. What I'm going to be talking about in my next video is about sexual liberation and how we have been groomed into exploiting our bodies sexually. There's a wonderful documentary, because people think you're sex shaming and that you're doing certain things, and they think that, that this, oh God, my head. There's so many things that people are doing now that they don't know why they're doing it. And then because they're overly identified with this idea about sexual freedom and liberation, they actually think they've been liberated when actually they were tricked. And this wonderful documentary explains that, because the woman who did it, she's the one in the documentary telling exactly how they trick these young girls into doing that. So I love to hear it from the horse's mouth, because otherwise people think you're trying to shame them, But we are being groomed. We're being groomed so that predators, we give ourselves to the predators basically. They don't have to come and hunt us anymore. We're giving ourselves away to them. Okay, so whether they have fine hair, coarse hair, or is tall or short. Now that you have a list of differences, I shall give you an outline of action. But before that, I will assure you that distrust is stronger than trust, and envy stronger than adulation, respect, or admiration. The black slave, after receiving these instructions, shall carry on and will become self-fueling and self-generating for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. But don't forget, you must pitch the old black male versus the young black male, and the young black male against the old black male. You must use the dark-skinned slave versus the light-skinned slaves, and the light-skinned slave versus the dark-skinned slave. You must use the female versus the male, and the male versus the female. You must also have your white servants and overseer distrust all blacks. But it is necessary that your slaves trust and depend on us. They must love, respect, and trust only us. Gentlemen, these kits are your keys to control. Use them. Have your wives and children use them. Never miss an opportunity. If used intensely for 1 year, the slave themselves will remain perpetually distrustful. Thank you. And another thing that, when they use the Catholics against the Protestants, you see in a white country, because then they can't, in Ireland, for example, Northern Ireland, they split the North against the South, and the Catholics against the Protestant, and where, there is an unrest in Ireland still up to this day, fighting this war, ancient war from how long? People can't openly say what jobs they have in Ireland in some places. Or people feel scared of going into, if they're Catholic, going into a Protestant pub, or, different things like that. These things are still going on, But because each person is so concerned about what's going on in their own country, they don't realize that this is nationwide. Some people haven't, they're not around different people. Even if they live in England, they're only around their own black friends. Some Arabs stay isolated amongst their own Arab people. I have friends from everywhere. I have friends from Brazil, Pakistan, India, British friends, white, as they call them, Anglo-Saxon. My friend used to be proud of the fact that she's Anglo-Saxon, she would say. I'm like, I don't know what that means. I have Indian friends. I've got friends from Iraq and Iran. I hang around in people's homes. I know them intimately. And that's why I know some of the, Arabs and different people. And did I mention Indians? I know people from everywhere, because I lived in London and I just hung out with absolutely everybody. And so I know people intimately, and they would tell me about their own culture and their own struggles, But if you're just isolated with your own people, and all you know is your own issue, you don't realize that we're all having the same struggles. It's the same things taking place. So we still have this thing where people are trying to be lighter, okay? And you can see where that comes from now. You see bleaching going on in Jamaica, where some people are bleaching. Bleaching happening in Africa. Bleaching happens in Asian countries. They're trying to be lighter. You're perceived as more pretty, more eligible. They have caste system as well in India. And all of this was done by colonizers, okay, using these same tactics, okay. You've got bleaching going on in China, and even in some countries. I was just watching where in one of these documentaries, Oriental people are changing their features to make themselves look more European because they think they're more beautiful and they get better jobs. I can't really go into so much more because I think the time is gone. It's now 41 minutes, and then I'm going to have to um, edit this. Yeah, I just want to say, like, my beautiful Mongolian friend who thought she was ugly because she wasn't white, and she was saying, she wanted to. Oh my lord! Oh, this all these things are coming in on my phone. I record on my phone. So my Mongolian friend, she's beautiful, absolutely stunning. She thought that she wasn't beautiful, because she wasn't white, and until she lived in Britain, and until she really was coming into her beauty and people telling her she's beautiful and all these things, that she realized she didn't have to be white to be beautiful. This conversation only happened about a month ago, and she's married. No, she's not married yet. She's engaged to a beautiful black man, a Jamaican. They have a mixed race baby who is also beautiful, and she could never conceive of thinking her child is ugly just because her child is mixed. Like this kind of, it's a horrible thing. We still have black people wearing wigs because you're more you're seen as more attractive. Genuinely, some people will see you as more attractive when you're wearing a wig. It's so, this racism is so entrenched, and the self-hating and the prejudice of other people, that you can't see people properly as they are, because we've been so brainwashed. So when we see people, certain things that people are doing, they're acting out of trauma. Certain things we do, we're acting out of trauma and we're not necessarily aware of it. And if we continue to over-identify with race, ethnicity, nationality, gender, social class, religion, polarized political orientation, body types, we will never unchain ourselves from the enslavement implemented by the shadow elites, because their system is their system is perpetuated by our own ignorance. Okay, if we only seek to further our own personal agenda at the expense of others, we will forever be distracted by the greater objective, which is healing and ascending. We change the system by changing our own mindset and our own actions. And I'm going to do an affirmation. Please do subscribe and hit that like button, and leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of this video, and until next time, love, light.